Most people are shocked when they find out that magnesium is one of the most important minerals in the body, yet it is also one of the most neglected. When you hear the word magnesium, you might think about supplements sitting on a store shelf or something your doctor rarely brings up in conversation, but in reality, magnesium is essential for life itself. It is not just a trace mineral that plays a minor role, it is directly responsible for over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, and indirectly tied to hundreds more. That means nearly every system in your body depends on magnesium to function properly, and when you don't have enough of it, the effects ripple through your health in ways you may not immediately recognize. Consider energy production. Every single cell in your body has mitochondria, those tiny power plants that generate energy in the form of ATP. What most people don't realize is that magnesium is required for ATP to even be biologically active. Without magnesium, ATP cannot bind and transfer energy effectively. In simple terms, you could have plenty of fuel in the tank, but without magnesium, the engine doesn't run efficiently. This is why people with low magnesium often feel fatigued, run down, and unable to muster the energy they once had. Now, beyond energy, magnesium also plays a critical role in muscle contraction and relaxation. Calcium makes the muscles contract, but magnesium is the mineral that allows them to relax again. Without enough magnesium, your muscles stay in a more tense state, which is why one of the classic symptoms of deficiency is cramping or twitching. But what most people don't connect is that the same thing happening in their legs can also happen in the most important muscle of all, the heart. The heart must contract and relax rhythmically thousands of times a day, and magnesium is central to that cycle. If it's missing, you can imagine how quickly problems arise. On top of this, magnesium influences your nervous system in profound ways. It helps regulate neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers that dictate your mood, sleep, focus, and stress response. When magnesium is low, people often report increased anxiety, irritability, restlessness, and difficulty sleeping. This is not a coincidence. Magnesium interacts with the GABA receptors in the brain, which are responsible for calming down the nervous system. Without adequate magnesium, it's like the brakes on your stress response no longer work. You stay wired, tense, and overactive. What makes this even more concerning is that magnesium is not stored in huge reserves in the body. You can't rely on weeks of storage like you can with some fat-soluble vitamins. Magnesium needs to be replenished regularly through diet or supplementation, yet the average diet today is almost completely devoid of it. Foods that once were rich in magnesium, like vegetables, nuts, and seeds, are far less nutrient-dense than they used to be because of modern farming practices and soil depletion. Processed foods, which make up the bulk of many diets, contain virtually none. Combine this with high caffeine intake, alcohol, and chronic stress, all of which deplete magnesium, and you have the perfect storm for deficiency. When you realize how central magnesium is, you start to see why so many seemingly unrelated health issues are tied back to it. Low energy, muscle problems, mood disturbances, poor sleep, high blood pressure, and even insulin resistance all share one common thread. The reality is magnesium is not optional, it is fundamental. Without it, the body simply cannot function at its best. And while the body can compensate for a short period, over time the cracks begin to show, and the consequences can become severe. Do you want me to continue with Kino Tech? The silent role of magnesium in the heart now. You said 2, ChatGPT said great. Let's expand Kino 20. The silent role of magnesium in the heart into a full script, 600,000 words. No ending statement. Keynote $20, the silent role of magnesium in the heart. When it comes to magnesium deficiency, most people think about muscle cramps, eye twitches, or restless legs at night. But the real danger of low magnesium hides in a place most people overlook: the heart. The heart is not only a muscle, but the most vital one in your body, and it contracts and relaxes more than 100,000 times a day without you even thinking about it. For that to happen smoothly, you need an intricate balance between minerals like calcium, potassium, and magnesium. What few people realize is that magnesium is the mineral that keeps the electrical rhythm of the heart stable, and when it's missing, the consequences can be life-threatening. Calcium is the mineral that causes the heart to contract, while magnesium is the mineral that allows it to relax. This balance is crucial. Too much calcium without enough magnesium creates overstimulation, like pressing down the gas pedal without ever using the brakes. That can lead to spasms, irregular beats, and eventually dangerous arrhythmias. An arrhythmia is an irregular heart rhythm, and it can range from a harmless flutter to something that puts you at risk of sudden cardiac arrest. This is why researchers and cardiologists who look deeper into nutrient status often identify magnesium deficiency as one of the silent contributors to heart disease, even though it is rarely discussed in mainstream medicine. Another reason magnesium is so critical for the heart is its role in electrolyte balance. The electrical system of the heart depends on the movement of minerals like sodium, potassium, and magnesium across cell membranes. If magnesium is low, this delicate balance is disrupted, and the electrical impulses that keep your heart beating in rhythm can start to misfire. This is when people experience palpitations, skip beats, or a racing heart for no apparent reason. Many go to the emergency room convinced they are having a heart attack, but their blood work comes back, normal, and they're sent home without answers. In many of these cases, the missing piece is simply magnesium. Magnesium also plays a protective role against high blood pressure, which directly affects the heart over time. It works by relaxing the smooth muscles around blood vessels, allowing them to dilate and lower resistance to blood flow. Without adequate magnesium, blood vessels remain tighter, pressure rises, and the heart has to work harder to pump blood throughout the body. This extra strain year after year increases the risk of heart enlargement, heart failure, and stroke. So, magnesium isn't just about keeping the rhythm of the heart in check, it's also about protecting the entire cardiovascular system from excess stress. On top of this, magnesium reduces inflammation inside the blood vessels. Chronic low magnesium levels are linked to higher levels of C-reactive protein, a marker of inflammation that damages arteries and sets the stage for plaque buildup. Over time, this inflammation is what leads to narrowing of the arteries, poor circulation, and the increased risk of heart attack. It's not just cholesterol that matters. It's whether your blood vessels are inflamed and whether your heart has the minerals it needs to maintain stability. Magnesium is at the core of this balance. One of the most overlooked aspects is that magnesium deficiency rarely shows up on standard blood tests because only about 1% of the body's magnesium is found in the blood. The rest is stored in bones, muscles, and soft tissues. By the time a deficiency shows up on a blood test, the body is already deeply depleted. This means many people are walking around with hidden deficiencies, never knowing that their heart is under more strain than it should be. Think about the implications. A person could be eating a poor diet, under stress, drinking caffeine daily, not sleeping well, and losing magnesium consistently, and yet their doctor never suspects that low magnesium is the reason behind their palpitations, high blood pressure, or chest tightness. Instead, they're often given medications that manage the symptoms but never address the root cause. Meanwhile, the silent role of magnesium in protecting the heart continues to be ignored. What makes this more alarming is that sudden cardiac events can sometimes occur in people who appeared healthy on the surface but were living with magnesium deficiency. This is why many functional health experts call magnesium deficiency the hidden epidemic. The most dangerous sign of all is when it affects the heart, because unlike muscle cramps in your legs, the heart cannot afford to cramp, spasm, or misfire without serious consequences. The heart depends on magnesium every single second of every single day, and without it, the entire rhythm of life itself is thrown off balance. One of the most dangerous things about magnesium deficiency is how subtle it can appear in the beginning. The body doesn't send you a giant flashing warning light saying, "You are deficient." Instead, it whispers with small signs that most people dismiss as normal or just part of aging. These early warning symptoms are the body's way of telling you that magnesium reserves are running low, but because they're ignored or misunderstood, deficiency progresses until it shows up in more dangerous ways. One of the earliest symptoms is muscle twitching or cramping. People often brush this off as dehydration or assume they just overdid it at the gym. While dehydration and electrolyte imbalance can play a role, magnesium deficiency is one of the most common culprits. That twitch in your eyelid, that cramp in your calf at night, that restless feeling in your legs when you're trying to sleep, these are not just minor annoyances. They are red flags that your muscles are struggling to contract and relax properly because magnesium isn't there to balance calcium's stimulating effect. Another overlooked symptom is poor sleep. Magnesium is necessary for activating GABA, a neurotransmitter that calms the brain and prepares the body for rest. Without enough magnesium, it becomes harder to wind down at night. People toss and turn, their mind races, and they wake up feeling unrested even after hours in bed. Many assume this is stress, insomnia, or just how they are, but very often it's magnesium depletion at the root. This is why magnesium is sometimes called the relaxation mineral. It literally helps the nervous system downshift so the body can recover. Headaches and migraines are another early sign many ignore. The brain is highly sensitive to mineral imbalances, and low magnesium can trigger constriction of blood vessels, leading to tension, headaches, and migraines. Studies have shown that migraine sufferers are more likely to be deficient in magnesium, and supplementation can reduce the frequency and severity of attacks. But how many people suffering from chronic headaches ever hear about magnesium from their doctor? Very few. And so the cycle continues with medications that mask the pain but never address the mineral imbalance driving it. Anxiety and irritability are also tied closely to magnesium status. Magnesium has a calming effect on the nervous system, and when levels drop, the body shifts into a more excitable, overstimulated state. People feel on edge, stressed out, or unable to cope with small frustrations. Over time, this constant state of hyperarousal can wear down the adrenal glands and further deplete magnesium, creating a vicious cycle. What many call stress is actually the body's inability to regulate its stress response because it lacks this critical mineral. Even digestive issues can be an early sign. Magnesium helps regulate muscle contractions in the digestive tract. Low magnesium can contribute to constipation, irregular bowel movements, and even stomach cramps. People often treat these symptoms with fiber supplements or laxatives without realizing their gut simply doesn't have enough magnesium to function smoothly. Low energy is another overlooked signal. Remember, ATP, the body's energy currency, cannot be active without magnesium. When your cells don't have the magnesium they need, energy production slows down. People describe it as dragging through the day, needing more caffeine to function, or feeling like they've lost their spark. This isn't just about getting older or being busy. It's your mitochondria struggling because the mineral that activates energy production isn't available in adequate amounts. Even numbness, tingling, or feelings of pins and needles can indicate magnesium deficiency. This happens because magnesium plays a key role in nerve conduction. Without it, nerve signals can become erratic, leading to unusual sensations in the hands, feet, or face. Many dismiss these sensations as poor circulation, but often it's the nervous system signaling that it doesn't have what it needs to operate normally. The problem with these early warning signs is that they are so common that people accept them as normal. They don't connect the dots between their sleep issues, stress, headaches, digestive problems, or fatigue and the possibility of a nutrient deficiency. They treat each symptom in isolation, often with medications that mask the effects. While the root cause, low magnesium, continues to go unaddressed. When the body whispers with small symptoms and they are ignored, eventually it has to shout. That's when more serious conditions emerge: arrhythmias, high blood pressure, insulin resistance, osteoporosis, and even sudden cardiac events. But it rarely starts there. It starts with the little things that most people live with every single day without realizing their body is asking for help. Do you want me to continue with Keynote 40? Why modern diets practically guarantee deficiency? You said 4, ChatGPT said excellent. Let's expand Keynote 40. Why modern diets practically guarantee deficiency into a full 600-word script in the same style. Keynote 40 to why modern diets practically guarantee deficiency. When you look at the modern diet, it becomes very clear why magnesium deficiency has become almost universal. This is not just about individual food choices. It's about the way food is grown, processed, and consumed in today's world. Even people who try to eat relatively healthy often end up deficient because the food supply itself has changed so dramatically over the last century. One of the biggest reasons is soil depletion. Magnesium is a mineral that plants absorb from the soil, but with modern industrial farming, the soil has been stripped of nutrients due to over-farming, chemical fertilizers, and monocropping. In the past, when food was grown in rich, mineral-dense soil, fruits and vegetables naturally contained more magnesium. Today, even if you eat spinach, kale, or nuts, the amount of magnesium in those foods is significantly less than it was generations ago. That means you could be eating the right foods and still not getting enough magnesium simply because the soil no longer provides it. The second factor is food processing. Every time whole foods are refined, magnesium is one of the first nutrients lost. White flour, white rice, white sugar. These refined products have been stripped of their mineral content, leaving behind calories without nutrition. To put this in perspective, when whole wheat is refined into white flour, about 80% of the magnesium is lost. When brown rice is polished into white rice, the magnesium-rich outer layer is removed. Sugar itself is pure calories with zero magnesium, but the problem is that processing sugar actually requires magnesium for its metabolism, which means consuming sugar drains magnesium from the body. So not only are processed foods devoid of magnesium, they actually increase your body's demand for it. Caffeine and alcohol consumption also play a major role. Both act as diuretics, causing the kidneys to excrete more magnesium. With coffee shops on every corner and alcohol woven into social life, it's no surprise that so many people unknowingly accelerate their magnesium loss. Add to that the high levels of stress in modern life, which also deplete magnesium, and you start to see why deficiency is almost guaranteed if you're not intentionally replenishing it. Another overlooked problem is the rise in consumption of calcium-fortified foods. For decades, people were told to focus on calcium for strong bones, so food companies started fortifying cereals, juices, and snacks with calcium. While calcium is important, the balance between calcium and magnesium is critical. Too much calcium without enough magnesium creates a state of overcontraction in muscles, blood vessels, and even the heart. It's like filling one side of a scale without balancing the other. The result is that many people are over-consuming calcium while their magnesium intake remains low, which sets the stage for everything from muscle cramps to arterial calcification. Soft drinks and sodas add another layer of risk. Many contain phosphates, which bind to magnesium and prevent its absorption. Combine that with high sugar content, and you've got a perfect storm for depleting an already low mineral reserve. Processed foods high in sodium also increase magnesium loss, since the kidneys excrete magnesium in order to balance excess salt. Even those who lean toward healthy eating often fall short. For example, many people who adopt low-carb or keto diets rely heavily on meat, cheese, and eggs. While these are nutrient-rich in many ways, they are not high sources of magnesium. If you're not balancing them with leafy greens, nuts, and seeds, you could still end up deficient. Similarly, vegans who avoid animal foods but rely on processed plant-based products often miss out on natural magnesium sources. There's also the issue of modern lifestyles. Chronic stress, lack of sleep, and constant exposure to screens stimulate the sympathetic nervous system and burn through magnesium reserves. Exercise, while beneficial, also increases magnesium requirements because it's lost through sweat. Athletes or people who exercise regularly actually need more magnesium than the average person, but few realize it. When you step back and look at the big picture, you see why magnesium deficiency is so widespread. The soil is depleted, the foods are processed, the drinks we consume act as diuretics, and the stress of modern life only increases the demand. Add to that the fact that most doctors rarely test for or even talk about magnesium, and you end up with a perfect recipe for chronic deficiency across the population. This is why people often don't connect the dots between their lifestyle and their health issues. The cardiovascular. They may think they're eating a balanced diet because they're hitting the food groups they've been told are important, but if those foods come from modern agriculture and processed supply chains, they're likely far lower in magnesium than nature ever intended. When people think about magnesium, they often picture muscles, bones, or maybe even energy production. But what most overlook is just how profoundly magnesium impacts the nervous system. If you've ever felt constantly stressed, anxious for no reason, or unable to shut off your brain at night, magnesium, or the lack of it, could be playing a far bigger role than you realize. Magnesium is often called the relaxation mineral, and that's not an exaggeration. It acts as a natural calcium channel blocker in the nervous system, meaning it prevents overexcitation of neurons. Think of calcium as the accelerator for nerve firing and magnesium as the brake. Without enough magnesium, your brain is constantly pressing down on the accelerator with very little braking power. This leads to overstimulation, racing thoughts, irritability, and difficulty calming down. Over time, it contributes to chronic anxiety and an inability to handle stress. One of the most critical roles magnesium plays is in the regulation of cortisol, the body's main stress hormone. When you encounter stress, your adrenal glands release cortisol as part of the fight or flight response. Magnesium helps regulate the release of cortisol and calm the stress response once the threat has passed. But when magnesium levels are low, cortisol production becomes more erratic, staying elevated longer than it should. This means your body feels like it's under constant stress, even when you're just sitting at your desk or lying in bed. Or people describe it as being wired but tired, exhausted but unable to fully relax. This is why magnesium is so crucial for sleep. Sleep isn't just about closing your eyes. It's about your nervous system shifting into parasympathetic mode, where the body can rest, digest, and repair. Magnesium helps activate GABA, an inhibitory neurotransmitter that signals the brain to calm down. Without sufficient GABA activity, your mind keeps racing, your body feels restless, and sleep becomes fragmented or shallow. Even if you manage to fall asleep, you might wake up multiple times during the night or fail to reach the deep, restorative stages of sleep. Another overlooked connection is how magnesium deficiency amplifies the effects of modern stimulants. Think about how much caffeine people consume today. Coffee in the morning, or energy drinks in the afternoon, maybe even tea or chocolate in the evening. Caffeine blocks adenosine, a neurotransmitter that makes you feel sleepy, but it also depletes magnesium. That means not only are you pushing your nervous system into overdrive with stimulants, you're also removing the very mineral that helps it calm down afterward. This double hit creates a vicious cycle where people rely on more and more stimulants during the day, only to find they can't sleep at night, which makes them even more tired and dependent on caffeine the next day. Magnesium also has a profound impact on heart rate variability, a marker of how well your nervous system adapts to stress. Higher magnesium levels are associated with greater resilience, meaning your body can shift more easily between stress and relaxation. Low magnesium, on the other hand, locks you into sympathetic dominance, the fight or flight mode that keeps your heart rate elevated, your muscles tense, and your digestion impaired. Many people live their entire lives in this hyperactive state, mistaking it for normal, when in reality their nervous system has simply adapted to a chronic deficiency. For those who struggle with anxiety, magnesium is often the missing link. Instead of turning to medications that artificially alter neurotransmitter levels, addressing magnesium deficiency can give the nervous system the raw material it needs to regulate itself naturally. Clinical studies have shown that magnesium supplementation can reduce symptoms of generalized anxiety, improve sleep quality, and even enhance overall mood. This doesn't mean magnesium is a magic pill, but it does highlight how foundational it is to brain chemistry and emotional stability. Even depression has been linked to low magnesium levels. Magnesium influences serotonin pathways, and when magnesium is deficient, serotonin activity can drop. This doesn't mean every case of depression is caused by magnesium deficiency, but it's one of the many underlying factors that is often ignored in conventional treatment. Instead of looking at nutrition, many approaches jump straight to pharmaceuticals. leaving people trapped in symptoms that could be alleviated by restoring mineral balance. What's striking is how many people ignore the signals. They normalize their stress, chalk up their anxiety to personality, or assume poor sleep is just part of getting older. But when you see how deeply magnesium interacts with the nervous system, it becomes clear that these struggles are often physiological, not just psychological. Your body is essentially begging for more magnesium so it can downshift out of constant overdrive. When you restore magnesium, the results can be profound. People often report falling asleep faster, staying asleep longer, feeling calmer during the day, and being less reactive to stress. Their mood stabilizes, their mind quiets, and their energy feels more sustainable. It's not about adding a new drug or trick. It's about giving your nervous system the basic mineral it needs to function as it was designed. Do you want me to go ahead and expand Keynote 6T? How to replenish magnesium safely and effectively next. You said 6, ChatGPT said perfect. Let's now expand Keynote 60, how to replenish magnesium safely and effectively, into a full 600-word script in the Seeing Motivational style. Keynote 6 style, how to replenish magnesium safely and effectively. Once you begin to understand how crucial magnesium is to nearly every system in the body, the next obvious question becomes, how do you restore it? Most people think grabbing a generic supplement off the shelf is enough, but replenishing magnesium is more nuanced than that. If you want lasting results, better sleep, improved energy, calmer nerves, stronger muscles, and a healthier heart, you need to understand where magnesium comes from, how the body absorbs it, and what mistakes often block its effectiveness. The first step is recognizing that the standard diet simply does not provide enough. Modern farming practices have stripped the soil of minerals, leaving even fresh vegetables lower in magnesium than they were a century ago. Processed foods, which dominate the modern table, contain virtually none. That means the only way to consistently hit your magnesium needs is through targeted whole foods and for many, smart supplementation. Let's talk about food first. Some of the richest sources of magnesium are leafy green vegetables like spinach, Swiss chard, and kale. The deep green color in these plants comes from chlorophyll, and magnesium is literally at the center of the chlorophyll molecule. Nuts and seeds, particularly pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, and cashews, also provide good amounts. Legumes, like black beans and lentils, add even more, along with certain whole grains like quinoa. But here's the catch: while these foods contain magnesium, the way you prepare and combine them can determine how much you actually absorb. For instance, many plant foods also contain compounds like phytates, which can bind magnesium and block absorption. Soaking, sprouting, or fermenting these foods reduces phytates and makes magnesium more bioavailable. Now, even with a magnesium-rich diet, many people still fall short. Stress, caffeine, alcohol, and certain medications rapidly deplete magnesium. Athletes and people who sweat heavily also lose more through perspiration. This is where supplementation can be very helpful, but it's critical to choose the right form. Not all magnesium supplements are created equal. Magnesium oxide, for example, is cheap and widely available, but it has very poor absorption and often acts more like a laxative than a replenisher. What you want are forms like magnesium glycinate, citrate malate, or threonate, which are far more bioavailable and better tolerated by the body. Each has unique benefits. Glycinate is calming for the nervous system, malate is excellent for energy production, citrate supports digestion, and threonate can even cross the blood-brain barrier to support cognitive function. The dosage also matters. Taking too much magnesium at once can overwhelm absorption and lead to digestive discomfort. The best strategy is to spread smaller doses throughout the day, particularly in the evening when the calming effects can improve sleep quality. For most adults, somewhere between 300 to 400 milligrams per day from food and supplements combined is a good target, though individual needs vary depending on stress levels, diet, and lifestyle factors. It's also worth noting that magnesium doesn't act in isolation. It works synergistically with other minerals and vitamins, particularly vitamin D, calcium, and potassium. If vitamin D is deficient, magnesium can't be used properly. If calcium is excessive, it can compete with magnesium and create an imbalance. This is why people who take high doses of calcium without balancing it with magnesium often develop muscle cramps, heart rhythm issues, or calcification in soft tissues. The body thrives on balance, not extremes, and magnesium is one of the minerals that keeps everything else in check. Another overlooked way to replenish magnesium is through the skin. Magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate Epsom salts can be absorbed transdermally through baths, sprays, or lotions. This bypasses the digestive system entirely and can be especially helpful for people who don't tolerate oral supplements well. A warm Epsom salt bath not only relaxes sore muscles but also delivers magnesium directly to the body in a way that's deeply calming. Finally, in lifestyle choices make a huge difference. If you're constantly depleting magnesium with high stress, endless caffeine, or alcohol, no amount of supplementation will completely fix the problem. Reducing the drains on your magnesium reserves is just as important as replenishing them. Prioritizing sleep, practicing relaxation, staying hydrated, and managing stress all help conserve the magnesium you restore. When you put all of this together, magnesium-rich foods prepared the right way, targeted supplementation with the right forms, occasional transdermal support, and a lifestyle that conserves rather than drains your reserves, you create an environment where your body can finally catch up. Suddenly, the constant tension eases, or your energy becomes smoother, your mood stabilizes, and sleep feels deeper and more restorative. The body was designed to run on magnesium as one of its most vital resources, and when you give it what it has been missing, the results can feel nothing short of transformational.